Chapter 1241. Behind Moon Yin, the cosmos barrier had already recovered. Moon Yin coughed twice. At this moment, a voice rang out beside her. "Your injury has worsened." Moon Yin laughed. "I won't die." After she finished speaking, she looked at the distant starry sky and softly said, 3 years of the fifth dimension tribulation, 3 years, should be enough for him. The God Palace. After the Pope returned to the Bloodshed God Palace, all the experts of the Bloodshed God Palace were dispatched. Tao Scriptures. After learning that the Pope had obtained the Taoist scripture, the entire Bloodshed God Palace was in an uproar. This was the #1 divine item in the Tao world. However, they also knew that it wasn't an easy task to protect this godly item. The Pope had just returned to the Bloodshed God Palace when the ancient temple's governor elder and the others rushed over. Apart from them, there were also several dozen self-release realm experts. Some itinerant self-release realm experts from the Tao world also rushed over after hearing the news. For a time, more than 90% of the Tao world self-release realm experts had gathered around the Bloodshed God Palace. Within the Bloodshed God Palace, the Pope's face was extremely unsightly. At this moment he became much more clear-headed. How could the Bloodshed God Palace defend against these self-release realm experts? Could it be that he had to hand over the Tao scripture that he had obtained? He was definitely not reconciled to this. At this time, the governor elder suddenly said, "Pope, you better hand over the item." The Pope looked at the governor elder and smiled. "Then who should I hand it over to?" The governor elder shook his head. "Don't try to sow discord, Pope. Before you hand it over, I believe that there will be no internal strife." The Pope suddenly looked at Jiang Yu and the others. "Everyone, I said before that after obtaining the Tao scripture, I would share it with all of you. I still have that thought." Jiang Yu looked at the Pope, saying nothing. The Pope continued, "Everyone should understand one thing, and that is, none of us can possess this Tao scripture alone. Only by working together can we protect this Tao scripture. In other words, we have to be united." Jiang Yu suddenly said, "Pope, how do you want us to believe you?" After a moment of silence, the Pope said, "I can swear to the heavens that if I go back on my promise, then let me die a horrible death." Jiang Yu hesitated for a moment, and then he turned around to look at the crowd behind him. "What do you think?" Everyone fell silent. In fact, they all knew that no one could possess the Tao scripture alone. It could only be shared. Jiang Yu understood the meaning of the crowd. He looked at the Pope, and the Pope looked at the governor elder and the others. "This sharing does not include you and your group." As he spoke, his eyes were filled with killing intent. An ancient temple. Now the ancient temple was facing a huge problem, and that was the Tao world's revenge. If the Tao world broke through because of the Tao scripture. Thinking of this, the governor elder's expression became even uglier. He couldn't let the Tao world cultivate the Tao scripture. Moreover, the ancient temple's precious Buddhist scripture was in there. Once the Tao world comprehended the Buddhist scripture, the ancient temple wouldn't be a match for the Tao world. It could be said that the ancient temple had reached a moment of life and death. At this moment he suddenly regretted not joining forces with Yi Xian. At least, Yi Xian wouldn't be a threat to the ancient temple in a short period of time. Now the Tao world's threat to the ancient temple was fatal. At this moment, a monk suddenly appeared in front of the governor elder and whispered a few words. Soon, the governor elder suddenly laughed, and the gloominess from before was swept away. The Tao world couldn't open the Tao scripture. Upon hearing this, the governor elder almost burst out laughing. It couldn't be opened. If they couldn't open the book, wouldn't it be equivalent to not obtaining it? But very quickly, his expression darkened again. Because all the experts of the Tao world had gone to find Yi Xian. Yi Xian could open it. At this thought, the governor elder's expression changed and he hurriedly said, "Gather everyone to the fifth dimension and protect Yi Xian." After saying that, he left with the few sadhus beside him. Inside the ancient temple, several powerful auras soared into the sky. At this moment, the governor elder only had one thought. He couldn't let Yi Xian fall into the hands of the Tao world. In the fifth dimension, Yi Xian suddenly walked out of the room. At this moment he had a head full of white hair. Fortunately, his face was still the same and there were no wrinkles. Yi Xian looked up at the horizon, and the corners of his mouth curled up. He was in a good mood. His heart was at ease. At this moment, his sword Tao attainment had reached a state of ease. Yi Xian suddenly pointed with his fingers, and a wisp of sword light suddenly appeared in the clouds at the end of the horizon. The sword light flew like a meteor. His heart was at ease and his sword was at ease. Although his current realm hadn't reached self-release, his sword Tao attainment had. However, he now had a fatal problem, and that was his lifespan. His current lifespan was less than a year. It could be said that if he didn't break through his realm as soon as possible, he would die on the spot in a year. In addition, there was another problem, and that was the problem of his realm. Previously, in order to fight against the enemy, he had forcefully broken through to the origin returning realm. It had to be said that there were still many drawbacks, and the biggest drawback was that his realm was unstable. In short, there were many problems. Of course, there was a bigger problem now, and that was the Tao world. Yi Xian looked up at the horizon and said softly, "It's about time." As soon as he said that, powerful auras suddenly appeared at the end of the horizon. Upon seeing this, Yi Xian smiled and said, "They came really quickly." In fact, he had already expected that the Tao world would return. Why? Because the people of the Tao world definitely couldn't open the study room. Since they couldn't open it, they would definitely come to find him again. At this time, Guanyin appeared beside Yi Xian, and there was a trace of worry in her eyes. Yi Xian smiled and said, "It's fine, I'll deal with them." After saying that, he turned into a sword light and shot into the sky. Soon he arrived in the starry sky. In front of him were the Pope and the other self-release realm experts. Upon seeing the Pope and the others, Yi Xian smiled. Clearly, the negotiations between the Tao world and the ancient temple had broken down. The Pope looked at Yi Xian and said, "Open the study room." Otherwise what? At this time, a voice suddenly came from behind the Pope and the others. The Pope turned and saw that it was the Governor Elder and the others. Beside the Governor Elder, there were a total of 8 ascetics and 3 monks. The 8 ascetics were all at the self-release realm, and the remaining 3 monks were all at the self-release 1 realm. There were a total of 12 people. Seeing this scene, the Pope and the others' expressions turned somewhat ugly. What was the origin of this ancient temple? There were actually so many self-release realm experts. Based on the current situation, the ancient temple had even more top-rate experts than the God Palace and Immortal Pavilion. The Governor Elder glanced coldly at the Pope. "Pope, aren't you embarrassed to bully the weak?" The Pope remained expressionless. Didn't the Governor Elder bully the weak as well? The Governor Elder grunted coldly, and then he gazed at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, don't worry. No one can force you while my ancient temple is here." The Pope's eyes narrowed slightly. Obviously, the ancient temple didn't want Yi Xian to help them open the study room. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Governor Elder, I should help them open the study room." Everyone gazed at Yi Xian when they heard this, and even the Pope was quite stunned. When did Yi Xian become so nice? The Governor Elder's expression changed when he heard Yi Xian. "What are you thinking?" Yi Xian smiled with embarrassment. "Governor Elder, look. There are over 30 self-release realm experts. I can't defeat them. If I don't open the study room for them, then they'll definitely use the lives of my friends to threaten me." The Governor Elder pressed his palms together. "Young Master Yi, don't be afraid. With my ancient temple here, the Tao world can dream of touching a hair on your head. Today, young Master Yi lives as long as my ancient temple is here." The others were speechless. Yi Xian was speechless. "This old monk knows what you're thinking, and so does the Pope." Yi Xian's face was filled with black lines. They were all cunning old foxes. In the distance, the Pope suddenly said, "Young Master Yi, I think we can talk." The Pope suddenly understood something. What if Yi Xian was willing to open the study room for them? Once Yi Xian was willing to stand on the side of the Tao world, what could the ancient temple do? Although the strength of the 5th dimension was inferior to the Tao world and the ancient temple, it still couldn't be underestimated. Once Yi Xian helped the Tao world, the ancient temple couldn't do anything. Hearing the Pope's words, everyone suddenly understood that Yi Xian was the key. If Yi Xian helped the Tao world, what could the ancient temple do? The ancient temple could only watch. The ancient temple naturally understood this. He looked at Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, the Tao world has the ambition of wolves. They wanted to slaughter the entire 5th dimension." The Pope sneered. "Didn't you say that young Master Yi is the greatest threat and should be eliminated quickly? Was it you, Governor Elder?" The Governor Elder said coldly, "Of course. Now, my ancient temple will live and die with young Master Yi." Live and die with him. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched when he heard this. This old monk is really good at ting. He's even talking about living and dying with him. The Pope gazed at the Governor Elder. "Master, you're not part of this world. How could you speak such shameless words?" The Governor Elder pressed his palms together. "Pope, no matter what you say today, my ancient temple will stand firmly on young Master Yi's side." The Pope stared fixedly at the Governor Elder. If his gaze could kill, then the Governor Elder would have probably died 100 times. Meanwhile, Jiang Yu suddenly looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, what do you think? Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and said, I'm afraid of death. Afraid of death. The eyelids of everyone here twitched when they heard this. They naturally didn't believe Yi Xian's nonsense. Is this fellow afraid of death? As far as they were concerned, Yi Xian wasn't afraid of death. Meanwhile, Jiang Yu suddenly said, Young Master Yi, none of us here are stupid and we're clearly aware of what young Master Yi is thinking. I hope that young Master Yi is aware of what we're thinking as well. Yi Xian fell silent. He knew that it wasn't very realistic to want the ancient temple and the Tao world to perish together. Moreover, the slightest mistake might cause the ancient temple to join forces with the Tao world again. When he thought up to this point, Yi Xian smiled and said, I know what all of you are thinking. However, I'm powerless against this study room. Jiang Yu frowned slightly. What do you mean? Yi Xian gazed at the Pope. Pope, lend me the study room. The Pope gazed at Yi Xian in silence. Meanwhile, Jiang Yu suddenly said, Give it to him. Chapter 1243. Make a guess. The Governor Elder looked at Yi Xian without saying a word. Could Yi Xian open the study room? He was not sure. Yi Xian was very cunning. Yi Xian suddenly said, Master, what you need to think about now is that we have time. The Governor Elder frowned. What do you mean? Yi Xian rolled his eyes at the Governor Elder. First, they can't open the study room for now. Second, we have more time to think about how to deal with them. What do you think? The Governor Elder hesitated for a moment and said, What should we do if they manage to open the study room in a short period of time? Yi Xian said seriously, That's why we have to hurry. We have to snatch it back before they open the study room. Snatch it back. The Governor Elder looked at Yi Xian. Do you think you can snatch it back? Yi Xian smiled. Are we just going to sit here and wait for death? The Governor Elder was silent. Yi Xian said, I have a way to snatch it back. The Governor Elder looked at Yi Xian. What way? Yi Xian said, You should know that the study room has recognized me as its owner. I have a spiritual connection with it so I can sense where it is. The Governor Elder shook his head. So what? Even if you know where it is, you can't snatch it back. Yi Xian smiled. What if we work together? The Governor Elder was silent. Yi Xian added, Governor Elder, I hope you understand one thing. The Taoist scriptures and the Buddhist scriptures are in the hands of the world of Tao. If we don't work together, we will all die in the end. The Governor Elder looked at Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, I'm afraid of you. You have too many tricks up your sleeves. Yi Xian shrugged. If that's the case, Governor Elder, let's part ways here. Then he turned around and left. At this time, the Governor Elder suddenly said, Young Master Yi, please wait. Yi Xian looked at the Governor Elder and smiled. Governor Elder, is there anything I can help you with? The Governor Elder said solemnly, Young Master Yi, I think we can work together. Yi Xian said with smile, I need to see the abbot of the ancient temple. The Governor Elder frowned. What does young Master Yi mean? Yi Xian shook his head. Governor Elder, you're too timid and don't have enough courage. I don't want to talk to you. The Governor Elder looked at Yi Xian without saying a word. Yi Xian was about to speak when the space in front of the Governor Elder suddenly split open, and then a white-robed old monk walked out. Seeing this white-robed old monk, the Governor Elder hurriedly bowed respectfully. Abbot. The person who came was the abbot of the ancient temple. The abbot looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Young Master Yi, shall we talk? Yi Xian smiled. Sure. The abbot made an inviting gesture. Yi Xian also made an inviting gesture, and then the two of them walked into the depths of the starry sky. With his current strength, the old monk was still able to disappear without a trace in front of him. It had to be said that this was too abnormal. As if thinking of something, Yi Xian looked down at the ancient book. Vajra Buddha body? Did it cultivate the physical body? Yi Xian was about to open it when he heard footsteps coming from behind him. Yi Xian turned around. It was the abbot. The abbot clasped his hands together. Young Master Yi, you met him? Yi Xian blinked. The old monk sweeping the floor? The abbot nodded. Yi Xian nodded. I did. Yes. Master Abbot, who is this master sweeping the floor? A complicated look flashed in the abbot's eyes. He's a senior from my ancient temple. We only know that he's in the ancient temple, but after that, no one from my ancient temple has seen him. I never expected that he would actually come out to meet young Master Yi today. Yi Xian was a little surprised. Only Master Abbot has seen him before? The abbot nodded. Yes. Yi Xian fell silent. It looked like he had really met an expert. The abbot suddenly looked at the yellowed ancient book in Yi Xian's hands. He hesitated for a moment before saying, "Young Master Yi, can I have a look at it?" Yi Xian nodded. He handed the Buddhist scripture to the abbot. The abbot opened it and glanced at it. A moment later, he looked at Yi Xian and said softly, "Young Master Yi has such good fortune." Yi Xian asked, "Why do you say that?" A complicated look flashed in the abbot's eyes. "This is our ancient temple's supreme physical cultivation method. It was brought by ancestral master Mo Luo from the realm of Western Paradise. This cultivation method has been lost for tens of thousands of years. I never expected it to appear again today." Yi Xian blinked. "Is it very powerful?" The abbot nodded. "The Vajrabuddha body is impervious to all evils and impervious to all karma." Yi Xian asked in a deep voice, "Can it break the karma on my body?" The abbot hesitated for a moment before saying, "Perhaps impervious to all karma is a little exaggerated." Yi Xian was speechless. The abbot handed the Buddhist scripture to Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, since the senior gave this to you, it means that he has acknowledged you. Since he acknowledged you, then my ancient temple will also acknowledge you. My ancient temple will do our best to help young Master Yi cultivate this Vajrabuddha body." Yi Xian said seriously, "Can we begin now?" The abbot nodded. "Yes. Young Master Yi, please follow me." With that he turned and left. Yi Xian glanced at the Buddhist scripture in his hand. His eyes were filled with surprise. Why would that old monk give me such a divine item for no reason? Could it be that I'm too outstanding? Yi Xian shook his head. He didn't want to think too much about it and hurriedly followed. Soon the abbot brought Yi Xian to the ancient temple's martial arts hall. The martial arts hall wasn't big and there was a monk in a black robe inside. When I was single I could write every day. Moreover, at that time I was still young, 18 or 19. I had my parents to shoulder the burden for me so I could write without worry. But later, as you all know, I became the pillar of the family and I even had my own family. My younger brother is still in junior high, so I am responsible for everything for him. This is my responsibility. Especially after marriage, when the two of us are together, we have two families. I'm not looking for an excuse. 25 or 26 years old is really different from 17 or 18. Some of the people who read my books are probably the pillars of their families now, so you all should understand how I feel. Sword Domain is very passionate, very hot-blooded, like a 17 or 18-year-old hot-blooded youth, courageously moving forward, daring to fight, not afraid of anything and just doing it. Only supremacy is different. Yi Xian is not as reckless as Yang Yi, nor is he as stubborn as Yang Yi. He is more calculative, scheming, and more rational. Moreover, the book is more about responsibility, cause and effect, scheming, and backing. Many old readers might think that Sword Domain is really childish and stupid when they go back and read it. Many old readers also said that Yang Yi would have died 10,000 times in the real world. One has to admit the fact that we are slowly growing old.